Everyone. I'm seeing a lot of faces I haven't seen for a while. Welcome, all of you. Lamor, so nice to see you. And yes, Deepak and Smita, so nice to see you. And I saw a few more people over here, new people. Kalyani, of course, Raghavan. And I don't, I recognize the face, but who is this Sohan residence? You can unmute yourself, introduce yourself. Okay, so first session, teething problems. Okay, so first chapter, first page. The book was written so that people who have misconception of yoga as only hatha yoga, the gym kind of yoga, what exactly is yoga, where does it come from? And so the first part of the first book talks about the roots of yoga. And the roots of yoga lie in people's quest. What people are born, people die. What is the meaning of existence? Where did it come? What is the meaning of all of life? And this has been a question not in India alone, but all over the world. Human people who are thinking. And if you think in terms of how in each of these areas of the world, some form of religion has emanated from that. But on the other hand, the yoga philosophy that was consolidated by Patanjali goes on to systematically look at the process without the religious element in it. And what does religion do? It builds various kinds of rites and rituals and beliefs for you to stick to it, whereas the principles of yoga is more a system without the need for a religion, right? And so the second section gets into the yoga philosophy. So, and the yoga philosophy essentially is all about when we think of ourselves as the body, everything that hits us and how we feel in the body, we think this is what we are. And when we still our mind and whatever comes, we are not being so reactive and just learn to observe, then we realize we are not this body at all. There is something else within us which is guiding us. And as we learn to be that pure observer over a period of time, that inner connection opens up. And from that, you're able to sense you have been born, you're an instrument of the cosmic flow. You've been born here to fulfill a certain purpose. And so you find your own purpose of, why you have come into this body. You fulfill your role. And in fact, most people may not know their purpose actively. But the idea of yoga is the cosmos presence in front of you, whatever you should be doing. So being honest to yourself and, being true to your conscience, whatever you do, that is what your purpose should be. So that is the summary idea of the philosophy of yoga. So in that little blue box over there on page 3, on page 2, you have the blue box of the Ashtanga Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga. And in page 3, you have the kind of a computer paradigm where looking at the entire existence as a distributed computing system. And in other words, the source is one, and each one of us and everything in existence is like a nodal computer. And each of the things that we are doing contributes to the whole. So that kind of a paradigm is over there. So now I'm going to stop here and ask whether there are any questions or thoughts related to the two parts, the roots of yoga and the philosophy of yoga. And by the way, if there are any questions, go away, carry on, Bhairavi, please open up. And if you ask a question, I need not be the person answering it. Any of you can answer, okay? This is a discussion.
Namaste, Dr. Narayanan.
Namaste, Bhairavi. Nice to hear your voice, even though you're hiding your face.
Yes, as usual, I'm hiding my face.
Yes. Bhairavi is actually Avni's sister. Okay, go ahead.
So my first and the first question that popped in my mind, and I believe I've asked you this question 6 different ways, maybe 10 different ways, but I keep getting stuck on this. There are people in this world who have abilities, and sometimes they get premonitions and messages. And how do they not react to that? How can one stay passive when one is feeling extreme dread or extreme anxiety because one's not aligned with the universe, or one is feeling something that's coming or it's on its way.
Okay. I'm going to give you two answers for that. Okay. And I'm going to give you these answers based on real life examples. Okay. So, one answer for that for you is that, the experience with PTSD and Yoga Nidra that has been done is that by going into that deep relaxation state, whatever comes and hits you and all of that, you recognize it is there, but yet you don't let it disturb you. And learning to be an observer over a period of time with many sessions of that yoga and nidra, learning to be an observer, you get over it and it stops affecting you. Now, I'm going to give you another example because what you have spoken about is, many of these intuitive things and all of that. Actually, I came across a wonderful person who actually ended up joining one of the spiritual movements in India and went away. And she is from an Irish Catholic background. And she used to be a faculty member, a professor in New Jersey Institute of Technology. Okay? And her field was in the field of architecture and actually civil engineering. And so, right from a young age, she had an extraordinary ability where she would know things. She would know what is going to happen later and things like that. So, so now what happened was, given all of these abilities and being a devout Catholic, what she decided was she felt that she should pursue a more spiritual course in life. And so when she became 18, she applied to a convent to become a nun. And 3 months later, a letter came back from the convent saying that they were closing down the convent and they were not accepting any more new applicants. And she was feeling very disappointed. And then there was a relative's wedding in a church somewhere where she attended soon after that. And she sees a person far out there. And she knew she had to marry that person. And that person did come eventually and propose to her. And she told him about her this thing that she wanted to be more spiritually focused and things. And so he said that's perfectly all right. They got married, they had children, and later in life she decided she had already, right from the beginning, had spoken to the husband, so she wanted to carve a more spiritual path. And because of these abilities, an extraordinary thing happens, and some of you may know about this or may not know about it. In Roman Catholicism, when people have these kind of experiences, they go and share it with their, local church priest. In Roman Catholicism, when people have experiences of this kind, they go and talk to their priest, their local priest, the church they go to, and that priest will kind of, all these kooky, strange people come and, people hallucinating or whatever, they're initially a little suspicious. But then once they find this person is genuine kind of thing or appears genuine, they pass the person on to somebody more qualified. So it would on stages go to the bishop, the archbishop, and finally to the cardinal and then to the pope, right? So this lady was treated with suspicion at each level. And after going through many levels, she was ultimately given living in New Jersey. In those days, there was a cardinal, I forget the name. But anyway, she was given authorization to go and meet the cardinal. So, to share her experiences. But just before she got the appointment and things like that, she was walking in the hallways of New Jersey Institute of Technology, and she saw an announcement for a Bharatanatyam dance. She saw a figure over there, and so she called she asked one of the Indian girls over there, hey, what is that symbol they have in that dance performance? The person didn't understand. So she said, come, I'll show you in the notice board. And it was a picture of Nataraja. So the moment she said this, the Nataraja, the cosmic dance of Shiva kind of thing, she became very curious because she had seen that in her intuitive awareness, in her meditation, she had seen that form. So what happened was her curiosity became a lot. So she went to the library and started putting these Hinduism books. She has all seen all of these. She has seen Ganesha. She has seen the Divine Mother. She has seen all of them. And then she became even more curious. And in the border of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, in that Pennsylvania area, there is a place called Stroudsburg. And there they have this Shankaracharya's mutt over there. So she went over there. And the moment she went over there, there was a person, whoever was the priest over there, he welcomed her. And then she started talking to him. And he was not even suspicious of whatever she was saying, whereas all her priests had been suspicious. He empathized with her and shared everything with her. And so she started going there and she started learning Lalita Sahasranam, all of these kinds of things. And then eventually she joined Mata Amritanandamayi and went over there. She never met the cardinal after that. Okay. So now, why did I tell you all about this? To answer Bhairavi's question, this lady used to travel in the New Jersey Transit from whichever suburb she was in to Hoboken in New Jersey to go to the institution. Okay. So in the initial days, she had this issue where while going in, she can actually see what is happening to all the people who are sitting in the train. One person has quarreled with his wife and is in a bad mood. Another person, he didn't have time to get his breakfast. He ran without breakfast and he's hungry over there and is feeling quite this thing. She can sense all of these in the train. And so for her, the question was, I don't want all this nonsense hitting me, right? So I want to be out of this. So what did she do? Eventually, what she did was she let go. God, you have made me, you take care of all this problem. So Bhairavi, that is your answer. I gave you a long answer largely because to explain to you that, this is a real person, what they've experienced. And I thought that story will be motivating. Are you happy, Bhairavi?
Yes, thank you very much. I understand. Leave it
Okay.
alone. Let it take its own course and learn to desensitize a little.
Okay. So now let's go on to the next page, 4 and 5. You have practice approaches to yoga. This is a very important segment for everybody to understand. You have practices in yoga and you have experiencing yoga. They're two different things, right? So the practices you have in yoga can be physical in nature. They can be somewhat ritual in nature with various things like, sounds, praying, those or, a use of various ritual techniques that you would do. And a third kind can be simply concept of belief in God and mental surrendering to God. So these are the three practice approaches. But the three practice approaches are not the same as experience of yoga. The experience of yoga comes in two ways. One, when you recognize yourself as simply an instrument of the cosmic flow, you have come into this body to fulfill a certain purpose. And so when you're fulfilling your purpose, you're engaged in the activities without reactivity. That state is called karma yoga or kriya yoga in the parlance of Yoga Sutras. In the Vedantic perspective, we call it as karma yoga. Now, on the other hand, when you're able to intuitively imbibe cosmic knowledge, you're always asking in your mind, why, all the troubles you have in the this thing. When you're asking those questions, then that intuitive knowledge that comes to you, that cosmic wisdom that comes to you, that is called jnana yoga, the yoga of knowledge. So there are yoga practices that you do, but the experience of yoga is a different matter, right? So that is where you see the main element that you see over here in the pages 4 and 5, practice approaches to yoga, the distinction. Any questions there? Next is it goes to the role of guru in yoga. See, the Yoga Sutra is very clear. There are no gurus, no human being gurus. God is the guru of everyone at all times. Okay? Whereas when human being people come in, what happens? Because somebody who may be much more connected and more aware, when you go near such people, you may feel the aura and vibration around them. And you go to a place where people have done lot of meditative practice. When you go there, you'll feel the vibration. Typically, this would happen in holy places of worship. When you go there, you feel a certain different lightness within yourself and things. So that does not, when you feel that kind of a thing with somebody, that does not make that person a guru. All that happens is that person is just another human being like you, except for one difference. That one difference is that person may have a duty to share that with other people who are interested to go into that path. So that human being is only doing his or her duty. Okay? That person, it doesn't become guru. The source of all knowledge, which is guru, is God. The source of all knowledge is what is God. When I speak something, you're hearing information. But in your meditative and your inner conviction and awareness, when it dawns on you, that is when you have the true wisdom. The source of all wisdom is God, because that comes from your connectivity there, not from the spoken words you hear. Right? So that is the distinction of the nature of...
Yeah. Dr. Rajan, I have a question. You keep on saying source of connection is God. Now, God as what? In the human form or just energy?
No. There is no God in human form. Okay? So the thing is, I'm going to say something that might offend many of the people here of Hindu background over here. Okay? So the thing is, you see, all these concept of avatars and people who have come into the body, Ram, Krishna, whatever, all of them, none of them are gods. They are only highly advanced yogis who have been able to imbibe great potentialities. And they have come into this thing, and they are doing their duty by sharing their knowledge, experience to bring the spiritual awareness for other people. So let me not make the mistake of saying they are spiritual. They are spiritual people and they're extraordinary people. And if you pray to such people, you can imbibe into their awareness and it will help you a lot. Okay? So I'm not saying don't pray to Ram or Krishna or whatever. Please do if that's your preference. But on the other hand, you need to understand that the Ram, Krishna, all of them who have come into a body is a spirit. They are also a soul, but much more advanced soul than most of us are, right? But on the other hand, God is beyond birth and, never comes into a body. And in fact, people who read the Bhagavad Gita, they don't fully recognize that I don't remember which chapter, whether it's 11 or 12 or somewhere. Krishna is telling Arjun, the Krishna you see over here is not the real Krishna at all. The real Krishna was never born or never died. When he is using that this thing, he's really referring to God that is never born and never dies. Okay, never comes into a body. So this is a very important element. But when people get into religious this thing, we don't want to get into arguments. You believe in what you believe, be happy with it. And when you experience it on your own, it'll take you wherever you need to go, right?
But sometimes, you meet, as you say, gurus, there are no gurus, but a spiritual teacher can be your guru, right?
See, whether the person is a spiritual teacher or the person who taught you mathematics or history, they are all your gurus in that sense.
Right.
But the thing is, you see, what happens is somebody who's verbally, sharing something with you or by touch or by inspiration or whatever, they are only other human beings like people in so many other walks of life who inspired you, shared something with you. But on the other hand, when the wisdom, comes within you, that wisdom has come because of the cosmic connectivity with God. And that is the real guru, because that wisdom came from God, not from the person who spoke to you.
How do you experience that? Like if you have a very strong quest within yourself. You want to experience, because most of the time we believe only that whatever is written in the books or this or that belief. But if you haven't experienced within your own self, that remains as a belief.
Okay, let's hold a moment.
Okay.
The thing is, you see, what happens over here is anytime you have a belief system, it gives you faith. And what happens is the faith becomes your support base for you to take all the ups and downs of life, right? Now, on the other hand, what happens is I believe that was Asha Sehgal who spoke,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So now you're not a young person anymore.
No.
You've been through a lot in life, right?
Right.
Going through all the things over there in life, you think of yourself when you were 25 years old and what you are now. You are no longer as reactive as you were when you were 25 years old. You are no longer judgmental. You are much more accepting and taking things in stride than you were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's very true, right?
Which means what has happened is within you, there has been cosmic wisdom that has come into you. And that cosmic wisdom has come, in fact, the greatest source of it that naturally happens to everyone is your deep sleep at night. And that deep sleep at night is the equivalent of a form of meditative, intuitive connection. And that is why I tell people, never compromise sleep in order to do your yoga or anything else in the world. Have your full quota of sleep, wake up without alarm, except if you have to catch a plane or something. Okay? So that is your answer, Asha Sehgal, that the thing is basically...
One question more, like, if you meet some saint, or, spiritually, they are much higher level, they are self-realized. They have experience beyond this body. Is it true? How to experience that?
No. But there are two things you asked this question. I'll answer both.
Okay.
It is your assumption that they are self-realized. Okay? They speak words that seem more wise than you had yourself understood. So you think they are self-realized. Whether they are not is a different matter. Okay? So the second aspect of the question you asked is, how do you become self-realized? That's the important question. And that important question is, that is where the regular practice of yoga, especially the meditative part, and the meditative part, there are two elements in it. One element of it is the quietness and integration within, and the second element of it is the inquiry. Unless you inquire mentally, you will not get the answer. So that inquiry that comes in is the key part. That is what leads to the samyama process in the Yoga Sutras. And the Vedantic perspective, they say you have to be a mumukshu. In other words, you have to ask the question. If you don't ask the question, you will not get the answer intuitively to expand your wisdom. Right?
Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
More meditation, right?
Yes. And inquiry within.
Right.
Yes.
But you have a very good intuitive power, because I attend your classes and you tell somebody you do this mantra and you do that. How do you know that? How do you know that that person needs that thing?
Okay. I love to tell you stories because stories are a great way to learn. So effectively what you have asked me is, how did I get where I came? That's the question you have asked me, right?
Right.
So here is the answer for you. Okay. So the thing is, you see, we all have a certain trajectory in life based upon whoever we came from and our roles into this body and things. So the family I came from, my father, mother are pretty traditional. So in our families, the normal rituals and pujas are all observed. And, also within our family, there is the ancestral offerings on every anniversary of our departed grandparents, and things used to be done. And the regular things that are observed, like, the sacred thread, doing japa, all of this was observed. But on the other hand, what happened was, while living in that kind of a family, the only thing that came across was when I was preparing to come join my PhD program in the US, in those days, if a government officer in India signed your passport application, you would get the passport faster. Otherwise, they require long police inquiry and things like that. So there was such an officer who was living very close to us, and so I had heard that he had been doing transcendental meditation, the TM meditation of Maharishi Yogi. So I asked him, Uncle, what is this all about? So he basically induced a curiosity in me. I'm sitting across in his living room from him, and there was a long pause in him when I asked that question. He kind of looks up at the ceiling, and after a little while he's looking down, and then he's looking up again, and then he told me, Narayan, why don't you do this? Why don't you try it for yourself? Their teaching center is just close by over here near my home. So when he told me that, he drew my curiosity. So I went and learned the technique. And what happened was, within a single week, I found that I had become a much lighter person. It was like I wasn't even aware. There was a lot of, clog in my head, like everything escaped from there. I used to have a sense when I used to sit initially for meditation, like the head would spin, and something is going out. And when it's all gone, it feels much lighter. So they would explain to me that's how I got rid of my stress and things like that. Now, for me, once that happened, my power of concentration, clarity in thinking, everything improved. So to me, it was only a productivity tool. So throughout my early career, I used this as a productivity tool. I completed my PhD program in 4 years after my bachelor's. And then I joined as a assistant professor, and then everything else. Then I was a high performer going through. But then I would never miss my meditation. Morning and evening, 20 minutes, I would do religiously throughout. After 14 years of regular practice, I had a crisis in my life. So I sat over there in meditation. Why is this all happening to me? And suddenly, I'm able to see people whom I have never seen before in the meditation. They look very different. But a voice is telling me, this is you, this is so-and-so from this current life and all of that. And we see some exchange of various things happening. And when I come out of meditation, I realize this was a karma from the previous life that is brought me into this over here. So now, but on the other hand, coming from the background I come from as a scientist, it was not easy to accept that. So what happened was I was kind of still doubting. And I was telling one of my meditation friends, I had this strange experience as if I saw a previous lifetime. I didn't tell him what I saw. Then he told me, there is a faculty here in Annapolis, in Maryland, where in the Annapolis Naval Institute. And he told me that faculty, if he looks at people, he can tell all their previous lifetime. So finally, I got to meet him, and he was able to see everything about my previous life, and he could tell me everything I had seen without me saying a single word. He told me everything. And that was about 2 years after I had this experience. And that's when I became 100% convinced that I had experienced a previous lifetime, because it was a secondary validation, with this thing. Then what happened is I continued with my practice, and another strange event occurred. I was sitting in a lecture in a place called Chinmaya Mission, where they were discussing a text called Viveka Chudamani. And in the second chapter of that, there was the second verse of that, not chapter, second verse of that. It basically says, you're lucky that you're a male and a Brahmin, that you're qualified to read this text. I look at that and I said, can really a self-realized person ever make a distinction between gender, male and female? And whatever was his sense of a Brahmin. You see, Brahmin technically means one who has the realization beyond the body, into the higher domain. It does not mean whether your parents were it does not mean a caste at all. But that is the way it has come to be. Many people assume it is a caste. And so I didn't know whether the author, that is Shankaracharya, whether he meant it as a caste or not, but clearly he made the distinction between men and women. And this was a big point of pondering for me. I started thinking, I kind of walked away from there. I was there for a lecture for a few more days. This thing, I got it, and I walked away not feeling quite happy about it. But it so happened, somebody from somewhere gave me a calendar where there's a picture of this Shankaracharya, the founding, the Adi Shankaracharya, and it used to be on my wall. And every day, and it's in front of my bed. So when I used to wake up, I used to see that. And I used to always think, was this man truly self-realized? People are all saying he was self-realized. And this was there in an unconscious way, because the thought was in the head and I was doing my regular meditation. And of course, when I'm doing my regular meditation, I'm not thinking of Shankaracharya, okay? But the thing is, in my regular meditation, I'm only seeking to connect beyond in a quiet way. But because the thought was there in my head, after about a month, suddenly I know all the answers. I could think of Shankaracharya, and I knew he did not become self-realized till the age of 28. I know how to look at a person and see how much of cosmic wisdom they have. And I know I can look at a person and I can tell how well they are connected. And I can tell how big is their karma bundle in them just by looking at a person. And so that is how all these intuitive abilities came. So for the question that you asked me, how do you go about it? It was my regular 14 years of constant meditation, a daily practice, that led me to the point to be able to go beyond. But then thereafter, it was another 5 years or so before I had the experience. And as we continue even further, every day I'm learning more and more. It doesn't happen, like in our most recent research, how the health of the body and everything is related. We have made much more advancement. But I'm going to stop here. You asked the question, how come I became where I was? I have shared it with you, and hope that will be inspiration for you to become like that too. So work on it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. I enjoy your classes very much. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I have a lot more questions, but I don't want to take the time. Thank you.
Ask the question in any case, maybe we'll answer it later.
Yeah, thank you. Now carry on with other people.
Okay. So the pages 6 and 7, you have the mechanism of yoga. And the mechanism of yoga essentially is telling you about 3 aspects over there. That is, one is each one of us has we say soul and we say spirit. What is the difference between the soul and the spirit? When we say the soul, it's a unique identity. The identity that carries on from one lifetime to another kind of thing. And the soul is just an identity, whereas the spirit has 2 elements in it. One element of it is a processor that is churning out programs that is associated with it. So the processor plus the program makes the spirit. The processor in the language of yoga is called chitta. And the programs that go with it is called the karmas and kleshas. In the yoga system, there is a distinction between the initial sin or the initial program and later programs. In the Christian sense, you talk about the initial sin, right? So the thing is, you see, the initial impurity or the program is called klesha in the Yoga Sutra language. And then in birth, when you react and you create new programs into yourself, those are called karmas. So this is the Yoga Sutra language, okay? So that is what activates you and makes you who you are. And the third element is the channels of communication, how they flow into you. And this is where the Pancha Prana comes in. The 5 types of communications that come in, each has a slightly different role in how it works with you and how it impacts the physical body and the mind, right? So then you have bottom of page 7 and going into page 8 and 9, you have what is the recognizing real yoga practices, right? And there you have a little story. And this is straight from the University of Maryland. So Professor Chopra, you have one from University of Maryland right over there. And that is The Real Nature of Yoga, a story of music yoga and swimming and sauna yoga. How many people did not read it? So all of you read it. Excellent. So let's continue. So see, I didn't ask the question who read it, because there'll be only a few hands that will go up, right? So now in page number 9, you have the purpose of yoga in one's life is to realize you're an instrument of the cosmic flow and to help you fulfill the purpose for which you have been born. So that is the real purpose of yoga. And by doing that, what happens? You become liberated. You go beyond rebirth and all of that. You go into the, there is a difference between moksha and kaivalya. And this subtle distinction that comes in the Yoga Sutras. And commonly in the Vedantic philosophy, people will say moksha means dissolving and going away. But that's the concept of kaivalya and moksha are slightly different. And so many people have said Patanjali Yoga Sutra is a philosophy of moksha. It is not a philosophy of moksha. It's a philosophy of self-realization. Self-realization enables you to fulfill the purpose of life, whereby having fulfilled the purpose of life, the moksha or the liberation happens automatically, right? And the other element that is the last element of this chapter 1 is very important, and that is the larger view of the term yoga. That is, everything in existence is connected into the cosmic play. And yoga literally means that connection, right? That connection. So yuj, everything starting from the word yuj. So the thing is basically, all of nature is in yoga. That is why creation can unfold. The second aspect of the word yoga leads at an individual level for each person, something through that yogic connection you become self-realized. And when in that yogic process you fulfill the purposes of your life, all the situations come in front of you. The unfolding of the purpose of life is also, you call it, by yoga it is happening. And the worst use of the term yoga is the practices. So when you say I'm doing yoga, you're not really doing yoga, you're doing a yoga practice, right? So that is how all these different terms of yoga have come in. And this is the overall element of chapter 1. So any quick questions there? We have half hour to go.
This is Lamore. I do have a question regarding chapter 1, but it goes back to the topic of the practices. Would you like me to hold it till the end?
No, ask right now.
All right.
Question?
Yes, Lamore, you want to ask a question?
Yes.
Smita.
Go ahead. And then I'll take the question from Smita.
All right. So this is referring to page 4 and 5. And so I was writing it out. I'm a very visual learner. So how you explained it in the 3 practices, Hatha, Tantra, and Bhakti, and the 2 experiences of karma and jnana made perfect sense to me. Where I am still trying to process is the concept of Raj Yoga being a system of practices versus its own unique practice of the 8 limbs of yoga.
Yes. Okay. Let's understand that. Good. That's a very good question. And then I'll come back to Smita in a moment. The key question is, what does the word Raja Yoga mean? A lot of people have made a wrong, explanation of what it means. Okay. The real explanation of it comes from the Shiva Samhita, where it says it is the play of energy. That is how Raja Yoga, it comes from the word Raja, means the vigor, the flow of energy. So that's where it comes from. Whereas on the other hand, a lot of people think Raja means kingly, Raja, a king kind of thing. And so some people say it is the kingly yoga, it is the path of meditation. You don't have to do various other things kind of thing. That's a wrong interpretation of Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga is the entire system of yoga, because it is the energy moving through you that creates the realization that gives you life, that gives you the ability to experience and sense. So that is why Raja Yoga is the entire gamut of the system of yoga. So within that, the three aspects of the practices, Hatha, Tantra, and Bhakti. Hatha involves physical movement of energy. The Tantra involves vibrational movement of energy. And Bhakti involves mental movement of thought-based this thing. So that is the key distinction between the three. So Lamore, question answered?
Would Raj Yoga being a system also have underneath it the 8 limbs of yoga?
Yes, the Raja Yoga is the entire thing. Every kind of practice, yoga experience, everything falls under Raja Yoga.
Thank you.
Okay, so go ahead, Smita.
The question I have is why and how does the original crash comes into existence? Why do I come?
Oh, okay. See, this is something that is in the 4th chapter of the Yoga Sutras. The way in which it explains is, and this is explained in other philosophies, including Kashmir Shaivism, the same way, that God's desire to experience himself or herself is what creates all the creation. So in other words, God is like an artist, and by making all the creation, the God is experiencing his or her joy in all this creation. So in Kashmir Shaivism, the way in which it is explained is that for God, it is like creation is like going in front of a mirror to experience himself or herself. Okay?
So in that, and when I come into existence, to fulfill his desire, or ekoham bahushyami, basically, right? Ekoham bahushyami, that's what he thought, and that's what it happened. But then in that, then I create karma, and then I suffer, and then I
As part of the programs given to you, you're not given the full wisdom of God. You're only given your limited program. By the way, you need to do a little bit of thinking about the 72 trillion cells in your body, each one doing its own program, and how you are something more than all of that. We'll have a separate discussion when I have the time. We have done a lot of research on it. But Shubhashini, you had a question. Go ahead.
Regards Kaivalya and Moksha, like both are liberation, release. So what is the subtle difference in it?
Okay.
How do you explain that?
See, there is a concept of Kaivalya where it only means you reach a state where you're no longer affected by anything and you have become one with God. Okay? So the concept of Kaivalya means you can have everlasting connection with God without your soul dissolving. All your programs have dissolved, but your soul doesn't necessarily get dissolved. And this is the concept of everlastingly being in heaven. Whereas the concept of moksha is even the soul is dissolved. And this is what in the Yoga Sutra, both options are presented in the last 2 sutras in the Yoga Sutra. Okay, so let's continue to the 2nd chapter over here. By the way, if there are questions, we still have about 25 minutes time. The 2nd and 3rd chapter are relatively short, but the important elements in the 1st chapter, if you have questions, please do ask. Okay, so the 2nd chapter gets into application of yoga, and there are 2 levels of it, for the individual, for the society as a whole, and there is a special element over there on the role of mental health in our times. So these are the 3 sections over there in the 2nd chapter. So any questions?
Yes, Narayanji.
Yeah.
So in the 2nd chapter, beyond the individual, in the 2nd line, it says, dynamic program multiplies into many to fulfill the cosmic goal. What is the cosmic goal?
Whatever God wants.
What does God want?
The other way to say it is God alone knows.
But isn't it related to your karmas also? What you
No, that is for you individually. Individually, that is true. But she's asking the entire all of existence, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. So, any other thoughts over here? So, in the second chapter, as you saw at an individual level, how it impacts you. Yeah, go ahead. Somebody. Yes, go ahead, Ramesh.
Yeah. If God wants to experience something, and that's why we come into existence. But if we are already dissolved, if our soul is dissolved and became one with the God, how do we come back into existence? For that, the soul has to be separate from the God then.
No, actually, you ask a question where we need a little bit of clarification relative to the earlier question asked between Kaivalya and the concept of moksha.
Right.
See, once the soul is dissolved, the person does not have rebirth.
Okay.
Okay? And once the person is in the state of Kaivalya, the person does not have rebirth except in very exceptional cases. And that exceptional case, they don't have rebirth in the sense the soul does not dissolve, but it stays close to God. And that is the concept of the Vishishta Advaita and the Dvaita philosophy and the Christian philosophy and the philosophy of Islam and the Semitic religions. Okay? So the soul stays with God. And so what happens is, these are exalted souls that have reached over there, and these would be souls like Krishna. And if God has a special purpose, where a highly evolved yogi with the wisdom of the highest level needs to guide humanity to bring bring this cosmic flow into the right direction, that is what in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, yada yada glanir bhavati bharata tadatmanam srijamyaham. That is when an avatar Purusha comes, right? So in those extraordinary circumstances, that kind of a evolved soul, which has not dissolved but is sitting close to God, may come back.
No, I mean, I agree with you, the exalted souls like Krishna.
Yeah.
The question which Smita ji asked, how do I come into existence? We are not necessarily exalted souls.
No. But there is a concept of first existence and later existence. Later existence, you understand, is the karma cycle.
That's correct.
The first existence, you see, the thing is, you see, God wants to create a Leela, as they say, and so God has nothing better to do than to start the creative process over there, right? So the creative process begins to create a dynamic interaction with many things. If I think of a person who is developing a video game, okay? That person sitting there and for the fun of it creates a video game and put all these little characters, these pixels all running here and there and doing various things. So we are really pixels on the dashboard of God. And God is creating it for the fun of it. And so one entity in that video game is a villain, the other is a hero, another is a bystander, so another is a picture on the wall. So that's how the entire world is organized.
So that means we existed in some soul form somewhere, and from there we came here?
See, you existed because God created you. That is the first existence.
Oh, okay, God created. Okay.
Okay, so coming back to the second chapter over here, the concept of for the individual, it goes right from the perspective of health-related elements all the way to role in society and how you interact with society, to the idea of self-realization and finding fulfillment in life, right? So it is the entire gamut for an individual. Whereas when we are talking about going beyond the individual, because yoga is really connection into every aspect of creation, it is all aspects of it. So if you think of whatever global warming or whatever this thing, everything is part of that system. In fact, it is a very interesting concept over there, where we talk about, when in the Hindu system, you talk about the sun and the moon as all having a spirit. You say the earth has a spirit, right? So they are all spirits. That is the abilities. That's why you call them as devatas, right? So the interesting part is, if you look at all of these things that are happening, global warming, the weather pattern and all of that, all of them have a certain spirit element, but I don't want to get there. But all of them you could consider as part of the larger flow of how everything in existence hangs together, and everything being affected, the role of environment and evolution, societies, everything. And by the way, that includes the idea of a Ravan coming in and a Ram coming also. So you can think of it in modern times, how it may be relevant. So I will leave it at that. I won't say any more. And the next, this thing is, but there are a few points of note. How you can see the same yoga principles manifest in so many different places in application. When people talk of integrative medicine, it is the application of yoga, yogic concepts. Management development principles, it's a concept. Concept of good corporate citizens, meditative introspection to resolve conflicts. All of these are different ways you can see the spiritual element coming from yoga. You're trying to find you're trying to find a system within how it will be helpful for society in various contexts. So the last segment of chapter 2 is about the mental health situation. Now, I guess all of you read it, so you know how in the COVID-19, how various in Australia and the US and things, what experience people had, how for some people it was positive, others it was negative. Now, the very important element in about this mental health issue in the world today is the mind is unable to stay anchored, quiet for periods of time. You see, I come across sometimes children who don't get enough sleep, and as a result end up with different kinds of problems. And why don't they get enough sleep? On one side, parents are ambitious, and the children become ambitious, and then the mobile phones and all the interactions, the what do you call them, the social media and everything going, sleeping late, waking up with alarm, all of these things, if sleep is not good, that is the first sign that over a period of time mental health issues will come. What are the first signs of mental health issues forming? Of course, sleep is something internal. What do you observe externally? Externally, you observe abnormal behavior. When people get angry all the time, frequent bouts of anger, that's actually an expression of the beginning. It is the founding steps of going towards mental ill health. So chronic anger eventually leads to frustration, and when that is not fulfilled, that will become depression too. So that is the element. Now, of course, the mental health issues like schizophrenia are of a different order. From our yogic perspective, when a person becomes adharmic, when their path in life is adharmic, the trajectory in life goes in an adharmic direction, they can become schizophrenic. That is our yogic understanding. So one of the very important exercises we practice every day so that we are well anchored within with the higher dimension of our soul is, can anybody tell me what is the one practice that we do every day to address this in our daily program?
Chakra vibrations.
Exactly. That keeps the anchor, and that is the solution to avoid mental health. And in fact, in many of our clinical experience, one of the doctors who works with us, Marsha Billis from Michigan, she has told me in all the mental health cases she sees, chakra vibration is always useful. People who are depressed and things like that. Okay, so so much for that, and we have 15 minutes to go. So the third chapter is about history of systematic development of yoga. But I'm going to stop here. Any questions on chapter 1, 2? Okay, so let's go on to chapter 3.
I have a comment and question.
Yeah.
The people who have more expression of gratitude, appreciation, and tolerance, are they higher quality human beings or just evolved human being or evolved souls? How do you, I mean, many people are more reactive than the others. So is there any category of all of us in a different grading system?
Actually, this is a very good question. So because you have asked this question, I'm tempted to pick up a book and show you right here. So where did I place the book? I was looking at a book earlier today and I'm looking to see where I put it. But anyway, the thing is, you see, what has happened is there are these two researchers from Harvard University, actually one from Harvard, the other from Wisconsin. These people were involved with meditation research right from the 1970s. Okay, so the thing is, they wrote a book that is for common readers about what they had found about this entire thing. And they talk about different types of meditation and how people's traits get altered. Okay, so a very interesting aspect that is noted over there is anytime when people do meditation with compassion. What is the idea of compassion? Seeking to connect with others. And it's not seeking to connect with others alone. There is a question in their mind, why, and how can we help, right? So this why, and how can we help is really the same seed where you're questioning that expands your cosmic wisdom. I've noted for you that stillness of meditation connectivity is not enough. You have to also seek. And so when you seek to compare, when you seek for why something is happening, how you can help, then in which case internally when you're asking those questions, that becomes the question to stimulate the samyama in you. And so these authors write that people who work with compassion meditation as opposed to vipassana meditation, or just like the what they call MSBR. What is MSBR? A mindfulness meditation. People who work with mindfulness meditation don't get as far in intuitive abilities as much as people who work with the higher forms of meditation where they are asking questions. Right? Does that answer your question?
So, so we become a seeker with the compassion to serve yourself and others will make you slightly better human being.
See, the thing is, you see, with more wisdom, you become a better human being. That's true. But the thing is, you see, these authors who wrote, they were fully into Dalai Lama and the Buddhist meditation technique. Okay, so what happens is they see the compassion as the way whereby the expansion occurs in wisdom. Okay, now on the other hand, that compassion is one kind of questioning. Whereas the questioning that you can happen can go beyond compassion to anything and everything in existence.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. So let's go to the history of development of yoga. That is in the next 10 minutes that we have. So the key point made over here is that yoga was known even before Patanjali. So can anybody tell me? Oh, Bhairavi, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Well, okay, so I'll just ask, and we don't necessarily have to discuss today, but can someone choose between Kaivalya and Moksha? Can a soul select?
But yeah, go ahead.
And my other question was, why do the vibrations change in a, say, example, a temple or a place where people pray a lot or meditate a lot?
Okay, so I'll answer both of those questions. The thing is basically the thing is, you see, when a person is seeking cosmic wisdom, and in the process of the cosmic wisdom comes to the realization that I am only an instrument of God, and when they have a sense of mental surrender to God, that mental surrender to God becomes like a program that never allows you to get dissolved. But all the other programs get dissolved, but your faith and devotion to God stays active. So that is why that soul never dissolves, but goes beyond rebirth and stays with God. Whereas from that, if you have become realized to understand, I'm only an instrument of the cosmic flow, I shouldn't be reactive, and there is no more purpose in life once everything for which I have been born is gone, then in which case that program of being attached to God is not there. So then everything dissolves. Bhairavi, clear on that?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So the second question, tell me again, what was that? Oh, okay. Holy places vibrations. Okay. So what happens is every place that you are in, okay? Now, if you have remember, everything in world, everything in existence is connected into the higher entity, right? So that is the nature of yoga. Some are more highly connected than other places. And the process of making it more connection in holy places is because people who have done more meditative practices or various other practice that relate to that, right? So that is why some places are more, you feel the vibration than other places. Did the question answer for you?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. So where are you these days, Bhairavi?
I'm still in Florida.
Oh, okay. I'll be joining you there soon. Okay.
Okay, let me know when so I can come see you.
Oh, well, I'll be in Melbourne, Florida. So anyway, so coming back now, let's go to the yoga known before Patanjali, as I said. So question was, how do we know yoga was known before Patanjali? Those of you who have read the Yoga Sutras. Or the
Because
textbook.
he mentions
Yeah,
about chakras and nadis and
exactly. And he doesn't even discuss them, but he mentions them. So it is very clear that the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is the summary document of the wisdom of yoga. And yoga, of course, goes back to the quest of humanity, no matter which tradition they come from. What is the nature of existence? Who am I? Why am I over here? And all of that. And so the key part is, as a summary document that Patanjali Muni wrote, but we recognize but the concept of yoga was there much before that. Okay. So now again, there is a little bit of discussion over there about how in modern day, findings of various researchers, we can clearly say the Yoga Sutras is more than 5,000 years old, not like 1,000 or 2,000 years like the Wikipedia and the Oxford University philosophers or, researchers are saying, historians are saying, right? Now, the other element of it is that the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali predates the Vedic Hinduism of Vyasa. Vyasa is considered the person who compiled the Vedas, right? And so the Yoga Sutras predate Vyasa. So all of you know that the Vedic Hinduism was present even before Vyasa compiled the Vedas, right? He only compiled it. The Vedas were there in different traditions. He only compiled it. It was already there. But the thing is, basically, when Vyasa compiled it, and then after that he wrote the summary philosophy as the Vedanta philosophy in a text called the Brahma Sutras. That is considered a later text than the Yoga Sutras. Yoga Sutras was even before that. And Vyasa actually wrote a commentary on the Yoga Sutras. So that gives you a little bit of a chronological element. And not only Vyasa wrote a commentary on the Yoga Sutra, in the way in which he has written it, you can see there is a complete parity between the Vedanta philosophy and the Yoga philosophy. Okay? So that gives you a historical perspective. And of course, what happened is, yeah, go ahead. Somebody said something. What is that? Okay. So so after that, what happened is, after that period of the Yoga Sutras and the Vedanta and all of that, many of you know in the history, the Vedic Hinduism kind of disappeared or became very small, and the predominant element became Jainism and Buddhism in India, which are considered non-Vedic religions, right? So in the coming of the of these in this period, what happened is a new kind of philosophy came about. That new philosophy had some elements of some of the 6 ancient philosophies. Those of you who have not heard about the 6 ancient philosophies, the oldest philosophy is considered the Sankhya philosophy. The Sankhya philosophy tells you about the nature of creation and things like that. Then after that comes the Nyaya and Vaisheshika philosophy. The Vaisheshika philosophy tells you all about the Panchaprana and how everything connects within the existence and all of that. And then after that comes the old Mimamsa philosophy, the old Vedic system that Vyasa brought, the new Vedic system. So it is called the Puru Mimamsa, and then later on the Uttar Mimamsa is the Vedanta. Then the 5th philosophy that came is the Yoga philosophy. So what happened was, during the Buddhist period, some of the Buddhist philosophers took some elements of Sankhya and some elements of Yoga and created a new and a non-theistic philosophy called Sankhya Yoga. Okay? So a lot of Buddhist related practice come from the Sankhya Yoga tradition. And then, of course, thereafter, if you look at how yoga got spread in the last couple of hundred years, the various people who came in, like, one of the early people who came in, the concept of yoga of Hinduism came with Vivekananda during the Parliament of Religions in 1880 something or 1890 something, right? And then thereafter comes the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, Swami Satchidananda, all these people. And then during the freedom time, we had Aurobindo Ghosh, from the Pondicherry, right? So there's this thing. And from the Himalayan tradition, actually, the Himalayan tradition is slightly different, but then within the Rishikesh, with a high component of Hatha Yoga came Swami Shivananda, and that is the Shivananda ashrams that are there all over. So these are the various influences. Then the Krishna consciousness, this ISKCON, Prabhupada, all of them came. And so that basically gives a little bit of a sense about how yoga concepts came in different forms from India. Any questions? We have a minute to go. Any comments? This became more like a presentation rather than a discussion that we had meant, but nevertheless, that's fine. It was meant to answer your questions after you have read this.
Doctor, in Taoism, do they do yoga?
In Taoism, there is the concept of spirits. And you see, when they go and do offering to spirits, they're seeking to connect. So in some way, it is like the same kind of, Tantra-based offering that you do. So you are, seeking. So there is a yogic concept, a yogic content within it.
Can I say something else real quick? I was reading this book that Dr. Parker told us about a couple, whatever. And he was saying that his introspection, that Patanjali was like it was Tantra yoga, like the sutras are Tantra yoga.
Well, the thing is, you see, the key element of movement, going from connecting from the body to the higher this thing, everything moves with energy. And the whole idea of energy moving is really a core component of Tantra, even though there is the element in the physical as well as in the mental. So that is the reason when you work to Tantra Yoga with vibration, physical element is involved, and the physical element in the Tantra tradition is called Prana Kriya, right? And in the Tantra tradition, also the concept of worship or prayer or this thing is also involved. So in many sense, when if you want to separate them in a fine way, you can divide them into three. But yes, Patanjali, since he includes all of them, you could call it that way. But then if you seek to separate it, you can make it into three pieces.
Thank you. Great session.
So see you all next Wednesday. So please read the next reading. Okay, we are skipping chapter 4, and the next session will be chapter 5, 6, 7. So that is the reading for next time. Chapter 4 we'll read later.